Hey Heather, how are
How are
you?
you, Mike? I'm
I'm
doing
good.
good. How are you?
Pretty good. No news is good news.
Right?
Yep.
Seriously. Well, do we have any trivia today?
Yes, we do.
Ooh, awesome. What's it based on?
This is just miscellaneous trivia. I couldn't
Ooh, I
think of a
like
good
that.
topic, but in 2015, for my birthday, my 50th one, I had a trivia challenge for all the guests at the party. So I'm just going to recycle that trivia challenge because I'm lazy.
Oh, I hope I remember some of the questions or answers. Do you know what you want to do for your
Yeah, you
birthday
were
this
there, weren't
year? I was there.
you? Okay. Okay. That's right.
Do you have anything you want to do for your birthday this year? Because that's going to be in about a month, right?
Yep, that's coming up in May. And right now it's a completely blank square on my calendar. I'll probably just do a hike or something, maybe have a barbecue. But,
Okay.
when you're my age, birthdays are no big deal unless they're evenly divisible by 5 or 10.
Birthdays are always a big deal. That's the one day that you have the excuse to do whatever you want.
Yeah, but it's sad if like everyone is busy and, nobody, it's hard to find anyone to, you know, celebrate it with you. So, anyway, I set my expectations low.
Well, I mean, that's a good way to never be disappointed.
Yep, that's
So,
kind of my life philosophy, or one part of it. Anyway, why don't
awesome.
we ask the first trivia question?
Sounds good. Let's do
Okay,
that.
um, which president was the first to make a trip to a foreign country? And what was the country, and what was the reason he went there?
Ooh. So if you guys know that, put that in the chat. While we are waiting for you guys to answer the trivia questions, we will go through and answer your casino questions. So if you have any casino questions, please put them in the chat as well. And our very first one comes from Northern Jim, and he says, roulette advantage play. When winning numbers start repeating, the dealer may be throwing with the same force. So I bet the last number to come up plus the two adjacent on the wheel. Is this a good idea?
Well, I'll let you chime in on this, Heather, since you have dealt roulette. But absolutely not. This sounds like the opposite of the gambler's fallacy. So in games like roulette, the past just does not matter. And I'm sure you could answer this part better, but I believe the dealers are trained to spin in opposite directions every alternating turn, and not have a consistent force, and probably not even look at the wheel when they release the ball. It's just to not just to so they can't be accused of trying to hit a certain segment of the wheel. And with that, I
Yep,
will give it to you, Heather.
you are absolutely correct. It is part of the casino policy to not look at the wheel when you're spinning. And then, same thing as what you said, the wheel has to be going in a continuous motion. The wheel will always decrease in speed, which will vary as far as like the number of vary as far as which number is hit. And then also, like what you said, the numbers that were hit before does not indicate the numbers that were hit after that. And one of the great things the casinos did was put up that roulette sign so everyone could see what numbers were hit. And that actually increased the money on roulette because people started associating patterns with that, even though it doesn't matter. Now, with all of that being said, as a roulette dealer, I would get in the groove and I would do things that took me the same amount of time. You had the same amount of players, that kind of a thing. So there were times where I would hit numbers that were the same one right after the other or close to. Uh, but that doesn't continue. And it's just a part of luck.
Yep. If you deal enough spins, you're bound to see the same number so many times in a row once in a while.
Probability.
Okay. Well, I think we've
Exactly.
beaten that one to death.
So, one last question, and then we'll go to the trivia answers. In craps, skidding dice were found illegal by the Nevada Supreme Court due to altering the probabilities or payout. Would Dominic Lorigo's dice control to reduce 7 probability be at risk of being illegal?
That's a good question, and I like it when people like give you some information before the question is asked. So very well stated question. I think that you make a good point that that it would not be a random roll, but I think that so far the gaming authorities have left this to the casinos to police, because it hasn't been proven that anybody can influence the dice with a legal roll, whereas skinning the dice is not illegal, is not considered a legitimate roll. So yeah, I don't think that we will ever see a player prosecuted for influencing the dice, even though he's doing a proper throw, because the casinos allow it. So yeah, that is my opinion there.
Awesome. And we have 2 people who answered our trivia question.
Mhm.
Jean says, was it John Adams and the minister to the Netherlands?
Nope. Not saying he
Ooh.
was never the minister to the Netherlands, but it wasn't while he was president. And maybe I should have stated the question that this is a sitting president, not a retired or a president after he served his term.
Okay. And we have one more. Was it Theodore Roosevelt to Panama on a forest expedition?
That's 2 out of 3 right. It was Theodore Roosevelt and Panama, but he went there to check on the Panama Canal.
That's
But
cool.
but it's funny. But he did do trips to South America, exploring the rivers and the jungles after he was president. And on one of those trips, he got really sick and nearly died. But
Ooh.
yeah, so that's you definitely are the winner of that question. So good job.
Does he get 2 points out of 3 points?
He gets 2/3 of a point.
Oh, okay. 0.75. Got it.
Actually, 0.666 repeating. Okay, here's a question for the older folks. What was the name of the horse on Lamb Chop's Playhouse?
So if you guys know that, put that in the chat. And our next gambling question comes from Paul. Is simulating a dice roll as simple as adding 2 random numbers from 1 to 6? Is using a program's language standard random function reliable for this?
Another good question, and maybe this came up because in the last week, I have released 3 videos examining craps games to try to prove or disprove that the dice are fair. So this topic is very fresh on my mind right now. And in one software I was testing, before I was just looking to make sure that bets were adjudicated right, and I was getting 11s right and left. So I made a video where I said at the beginning, I'm going to do 100 rolls and count how many times an 11 comes up. And I made 2 such videos because there were 2 different craps games. And in one of them, there were 22 11s, and in the other, there were 29. And there should have only been 5.6 in a, on average, in a fair game. So, and a lot of the comments in these videos talked about the RNG. But to answer your question, it would be really simple to simulate a dice roll, assuming that your compiler had a random number generator. And the way you do that is the way random number generators work is they give you an integer between 0 and a very large number, which is usually 2 to the 32nd power minus 1. And that works out to, about 4.3 billion. So you're going to get a number between 0 and a number that's close to 4.3 billion. And the way you can take that and get it to a dice roll is you divide it by 6 and take the remainder. That'll give you a number between 0 and 5, and then you just add 1 to it, giving you a number between 1 and 6. Very nice and simple. So I think, so I don't know what is going on with this Urgent Game software that was rolling 11s right and left, but it is really simple to get a dice roll, assuming you have a random number generator to begin with. So the random number generator should not be blamed. It should be what the programmer is doing with the original random number. And what else did I want to say? Is using a programmer language standard random function call reliable for this? Actually, no. How shall I put this? The standard random number generator with Microsoft Visual Studio is really quite bad. It will repeat numbers in a fairly short cycle. And so I use what's called a Mersenne twister, which gives you a really, really good random number generator that I don't think that anybody could find a fault with. And I would think that anybody in the business of online gambling would take a little trouble to get a good random number generator. And by the way, an exception to what I just said is that in Excel, if you draw a random number, you get a number between a floating point number between 0 and 1. And the way you might convert that to a dice roll is you multiply that number by 6, and then let's say you get, multiply that by 6 and round it down to the nearest integer and then add 1. So that was kind of a long-winded answer, but this is a topic very much of interest to me. So that's the short version of that answer. I could probably talk about it for much longer.
What program do casinos use with their random number generator?
So they, for slot machines or electronic table games, they use whatever, comes with the slot machine or the equipment. So let's say it's something by Interblock. They basically are trusting whatever Interblock uses, but all these machines have to get tested by the Nevada Gaming Control Board, at least here in Nevada. And I'm sure that they ask questions about what random number generator RNG is used, and they may even perform tests on it. I don't know, but gamblers do not have to worry about random number generators being bad.
Okay.
They really are pretty simple, but they should worry about a dishonest programmer taking a random number and being tricky with it. For example, like I proved that an internet casino once was dealing seconds in blackjack, and that still had some elements of fairness to it. All they did was that if the third card would cause the dealer to bust, they never show it to the player, they burn it, and then draw the next card. And in both cases, it's a random card, but the player just doesn't know that a card that would be good for the player is getting burned and never seen. So don't blame the RNG for that. Blame the programmers and the people telling the programmers what to do.
Okay. Awesome. Okay, so let's see what people's answer was for the trivia question.
Hey.
Was it Charlie Horse?
Yay! Good job, Wolf.
Nice.
And by the way, as always, do not search. Not accusing you of searching, but I just forgot to say that.
Yeah, because we have had that happen. Okay, what is our next trivia question?
The next one is, in a deck of cards, which suit is the suicidal king?
Ooh, that's a good one. So if you guys know, put that in the chat. And our next question comes from Paul, who says, are you aware of any properties or cruise lines that allow spouses to link players' cards together to generate better offers?
No. Short answer is no. Casinos generally hate it when when a couple uses the same player card. They want everybody to have their own. and they want not just to have their own, but to use their own. They don't like it, say, when the husband collects free play on the wife's card, and people have been kicked out for doing that.
They do that.
Yep.
I would have someone on my blackjack table who gave us his card. So he was being rated, and then his wife would go play on the slots. So he'd give her the same card, and she would use the card during slots.
Yeah. And most casinos don't mind it if it's clearly just a recreational gambling couple. Like, I'm sure that you've seen women using men's player cards and vice versa lots of times. And if it looks like totally clean play, I would imagine you just turn a blind eye to it. But the casinos do have a big problem with players running through, like, dozens of player cards for the sake of the mail, and that will get you kicked out if they catch it.
Yeah. Okay, so our next one is a fun one. This is from Jean. Today is National Pineapple Upside Down Cake Day. What is your favorite ways to eat or cook pineapple, and what are your favorite cakes?
Oh, okay. I've never been asked this one before. I didn't know that about it being National Pineapple Upside Down Cake Day. It's also Earth Day, by the way.
It's also National Toke Day, too.
I didn't know there was a Toke Day.
Yeah, 420, man. We show all of our toke numbers.
Okay, that I did know. But I thought about toking like tipping.
That's what I do. I do a National Toke Day, and we show like the latest toke numbers, and I just equate the two. Okay. I get a kick out of it.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to wish some of my cannabis partaking friends happy 420 day. All right, my favorite way to eat pineapple. I mean, I do like pineapple. I'm fine with just eating straight pineapple. Pineapple upside down cake is good. Haven't had it in a long time. I tend to not like pineapple on my pizza, unlike some people. And I don't eat pineapple that much because it's kind of expensive. But I do like to just eat, just to get a pineapple and cut it myself and eat it directly. It kind of bothers me when people buy disposable plastic full of chopped up pineapple. One, because it's wasteful. It's bad for the environment. That piece of plastic may end up in the ocean. And furthermore, I think it's part of the fun to chop up that pineapple yourself. And yes, that's about all I can say about pineapples.
What about your cake? What's your favorite kind of cake?
I just like a basic, like a cake that's like fluffy, that has vanilla frosting and maybe chocolate icing, but not too much. I think Americans go way overboard on the sweets, so just do the icing in moderation.
Definitely. And I agree with you. I love raw pineapple. Raw pineapple's the way to go. You said you don't like it on your pizza. I love it on my pizza, so I have to say that. And I love carrot cake, like with actual carrots and raisins and walnuts in it, and then you do the cream cheese frosting, and I always put like a couple lemons in that. So
I think we talked about carrot cake on a recent show.
Probably. It's my favorite.
Okay.
Should we do another question? Should we do another question, or should we do the trivia answer?
Let's do the trivia.
Okay. So is it King of Hearts?
Yes, it is. Jack. Good job. Anyone else say hearts?
Let's see. We got diamonds, Queen of Hearts, and that's it.
Okay, good job, Jack. Okay, the next question is, according to the Twilight books, what is the correct way to kill a vampire? And remember,
by taking its sparkles
the Twilight
away?
Books, because there's all kinds of different opinions on this in the literature. So I want to know, what is the standard in the Twilight books?
Take the sparkles away. Have you read any of the Twilight books?
No.
I don't blame you. That stuff is like, if anyone likes it, I'm sorry.
No, my older daughter was the perfect age for the Twilight books because they came out when she was, like 12, and she loved them. And I one time we were staying at the Mandalay Bay, and the kids were bored, so I uh, paid for a pay-per-view of the first Twilight movie, and I only made it, I think, until the baseball game, and I just thought it was so silly that I excused myself and went to sleep.
No, that's probably the best way to experience it. Okay, so while we're waiting for your guys' answers, our next gambling question comes from Otis. Will a casino with a slot machine loss rebate kick out players for strategically removing their player's card before hitting a jackpot? Any must-hit progressives become vulnerable with this strategy?
That's another good question. Some good questions today. So there's another one I could talk a long time about, but it used to be a pretty common thing for players to pull their cards. For example, in video poker, if you get dealt foil or royal, you pull out your card. So if you get that royal, their system is not going to know that you got it. And it's going to make you look like you're losing more money than you really are. Same thing like with a dealt four of a kind. You want the casinos to think you're losing more than you really are. For example, in table games, you can achieve this by rat holing chips. So as to loss rebates, okay, first of all, I have heard that casinos are much better with the technology to combat card pullers. So I think now in video poker, the card that was in the machine at the time of the bet was made, it remembers that. So if you pull your card after getting dealt a four of a kind, it's going to still credit you with that win, assuming that you hold a four of a kind. But you can still pull it out and play. And so let me reread your question. Loss rebate before hitting a jackpot. So let's say you're playing a slot machine and the must hit buy gets really high. I think it's perfectly fine to pull out your card then. Again, so you're not going to get credit in their system for that jackpot. And I don't think they would like it if you're always pulling your card in positive situations, but I also don't think you would get caught. Like, I don't think there's anything in their rules requiring you to use a player card consistently. Will a casino with let me reread to make sure see exactly what the question is. Kick out players. No, I don't think they will do that because I don't think they will know that you're doing that. And by the way, here's another thing you can do is with variable stake games. Like, let's say it's a game that every 10th spin, you get lots of wilds. What you can do is the first 9 spins in a cycle, you use one card, and then on the 10th spin, you either use a different card or no card at all. That way, the card that you're using for the 9 spins that aren't getting the feature, you're going to be showing losing a lot of money. And so that's something that some players do, and I would do myself because, again, you're not required to use a player card. And so good question, and that's what I have to say about that.
Awesome. Okay, so let's see if we have any answers to the trivia. Is it use the wrong pronoun for the vampire?
Okay, I get the joke, but no, that's not what I was looking for.
How about make love to it?
Nope, another good answer, though.
Drive a stake through its heart?
That is a way that you see in other literature how to kill a vampire, but it would not work in the Twilight books.
Okay. And then that's pretty much all the answers we got for that.
Okay, so in the Twilight books, it's tougher to kill a vampire. And I'm just going to read you what it says from a website for Twilight fans. And I'm quoting here. Twilight vampires can only be killed by other vampires and wolves like Jacob, the only creatures with teeth strong enough to penetrate their flesh and who possess the same strength and speed. Vampires die when they are dismembered or decapitated and the remains are buried. Vampires die more easily in the Twilight books, where a simple beheading will do the trick, than they do um, than in the books, where dismembering and burying the pieces are required. Crosses, holy water stakes, and any other man-made weapon, such as a gun, pose no threat. Sunlight won't incinerate them, leaving a pile of ash, but rather causes their skin to sparkle like diamonds. Sunlight can be a liability since the spectacle it creates can increase the risk of unwanted attention on either an individual or a coven, but it's not directly lethal. So there you go. I am reading a book right now called Vampire Girl in London, and that also subscribes to the fact that it is tough to kill vampires. Like in this book, this is not a spoiler, but the main vampire, I think that they drove a stake through her heart and then buried her. But she remained buried for 100 years before some vampires dug her up and took the stake out, and she was good to go. And I think it was said in that book that what it just said there is that you had to chop up the vampire in lots of little bits and then separate all these pieces. So that is my understanding of that one.
Okay. Have you ever read the book I Am Legend?
I've seen the movie. It's one of my favorite movies, but I have not seen, I've not read the books.
If you like the movie, you'll probably like the book.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is our next?
On the internet, like a trailer for a I Am Legend sequel, but I'm not sure if it was a joke because the main character played by Will Smith died in the movie. Ooh, sorry if that's a spoiler.
Spoilers.
But no, I love the movie. So yeah, I will. I'll have to get the book.
Awesome. Okay. Well, I mean, it's been out for at least 10 years, right? 20 years? How long has that movie been out?
Probably like 15.
Okay. See, after like what, 5 or 10 years, it shouldn't be considered a spoiler anymore.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
Okay. What is our next one?
Okay. How about what is Lady Gaga's full name?
So if you guys know, put that in the chat. And our next gambling question comes from Paul, who says, any thoughts on historical horse racing slots and how they play differently compared to traditional Vegas slots? They seem to look and play the same.
Yes, somebody who works in a horse racing slot casino recently asked me about this, and I have never actually played these slots. So, yeah, on this one, I'm going to just have to say I've never actually seen these machines, so I just simply don't know.
Okay. And then we'll go to the next question, which is from Debraxon. And he says, do roulette players accept 00 and 000 games because they think 37, 38, 39 slots are similar? Or is there some cultural factor where double and triple E's always associated with the superior?
Yeah, this is something that I find strange, is that you can go to a casino that has both 00 and 000 roulette at the same minimum, and you'll, for some reason, it seems like more players like the 000 roulette. And you would have to ask them why, but I think they would just say that this table feels luckier to me. Maybe they put the more attractive dealer on that game. I just don't know. And, and so most gamblers do not care about the odds, to be perfectly honest with you. And they will pick just whatever game to play, whether it be a table or a machine. that they just feel is calling out to them. That's what my mother does. When I catch her playing a video poker game with a bad pay table, I will say, "This is an awful pay table. Why are you playing it?" To which she will say, "What is a pay table?" So that is about all I can say to that one.
Maybe we need a video on just what pay tables are for all the newbies.
Yeah, well, I'm sure everyone watching this knows, but a pay table shows you what you win for any given poker hand.
Yeah. Okay. So do you want to do one more gambling question, or you want to see if there's any answers?
Let's do one more question since those were quickies.
Sounds good. Okay, so our next question comes from Justin. And Justin says, what should I do if a slot player is being very aggressive to his machine?
Well, I don't know in what capacity you might care. If you are just another player, I would say that's not your problem. If the casino doesn't like it, they can take action about it. But if you are, say, the slot manager and that is your problem, I would say that if the player is being disruptive to other players, I would ask him or her to stop. Certainly, if it looks like they're going to damage the machine, which, by the way, is tough to do. These machines are very tough. I would put a stop to it then. So you really have to just assess the situation based on just how bad the this player is to the machine.
Yeah. And you can always walk away too if you're not feeling comfortable being around that.
Yeah. There was a recent discussion on a forum about Red Rock, and somebody, or no, this was a discussion on a radio show, KNPR, and it came up: what should you do if you see another hiker littering? And the consensus was to do nothing, that it's not worth having a confrontation over, and this person is probably a jerk, and confronting them is probably just not going to help. Now, you
Yeah.
might like pick up the trash right in front of them, maybe even making a sarcastic remark about it, like, I sure hate litter. Yeah. So, if it's not your business in general, I would say that to just, to do nothing, to leave it to the person whose business it is.
Yeah. Especially nowadays where we're hearing on the news that people are being shot and killed for mistakes that are so silly. You don't really, is it really a good idea to get in a confrontation with someone nowadays?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So the answer to the trivia question, was it Richard Mathewson?
No, Lady Gaga would probably not be named Richard, but any other guesses?
How about Stephanie Germanota?
Yeah. And
good.
yeah, and that's spelled right too. Yeah, very good. And very good, Jean. Not to accuse you of cheating, but reminder searching is not allowed. But her full name, by the way, is Stephanie Joanne Angelina Germanata.
Nice.
So good job there. Okay, next question. In the Cars movies, what is the number of Lightning McQueen?
So if you guys know, put that in the chat. And our next gambling question comes from Source Keen. And Source Keen says, what is the longest craps dice roll you have ever been a part of or have seen?
I just don't know. I don't keep track of that. I don't play a great deal of craps, but I cannot recall ever like a really incredible roll. Yeah, I just, I can't remember any that stand out, to be honest with you.
When I was a casino dealer, the longest roll we had at the Golden Nugget was an hour long.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone was talking about it, like every single person. It was just one of those things where they were talking about it in the break room and everything. And then people would like walk by to sort of rubberneck.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was pretty amazing.
By the way, in a situation like that, do you enforce, like, is there a rule like 10 or 12 maximum players at the table? Or if somebody like pushed through and made a bet, would you honor that bet?
Well, the casino's a corporation. They want any money that they'll give them, you know? So they'll accept the bet. If all of this, now here's the thing, if it's like a field bet, they could just put it on there. It's not a big deal. However, if it's like a place number where you actually have like a certain spot for each player, we can't do more than that because there's just no room on the felt layout for that. So it really just depends on what the how many people are betting that one particular bet and if there's enough room.
Okay. All right.
Uh,
That's my answer to that one.
Okay, so our next one is, do you think slot machines are being tweaked to combat slot vultures? Some machines that are used to be winnable stopped working for me big time.
I have not heard of this happening. But then again, I'm not at the forefront of the gossip about this. So I tend to think the answer is no, but I'm not sure.
Well, I mean, if they tweaked it, they would have to get it verified by the Nevada Gaming Control Board, right?
Well, I think that, like, let's say there's a version of, say, Hexbreaker 3 out there, and the casino doesn't like that it's getting vultured too much. They could complain to the slot maker, and the slot maker could make a new version, and yes, they would have to get it approved, but it would not be difficult to tweak these games so that the advantage of vulturing them is not as big.
Okay.
So, but as far as I know, as usual, casino management is always behind the times. And for the most part, they don't realize what's going on with vulturable slots. They do a little bit, but not so much to ask the slot makers to change the way they're programmed. Mm-hmm. And by the way, one thing I want to say that I don't think that I've emphasized enough is that if you like slots, but you're not a slot vulture, don't play slots that can be vultured, because probably the vultures left them in a very low state, and the next 20 or so spins are probably going to be very negative expected value. So if you are a recreational slot player, just play the ones that do not have a special feature that hits every so often. Just and something that you vest into, like in Rich Little Piggies. Just play simple games where the odds are always the same on every single spin.
What is your opinion on that? Where if you're having a bad run or a bad streak, do you suggest people to get up and walk away, whether that's on the slot machine or the table game, or do you think people should wait it out?
No, one of the question I get asked a lot is, when should I quit playing? Like, what should my winning or losing marker be to quit playing? And I've never been a big fan of, how shall I put this, about strategy about quitting points. Ultimately, in games like Roulette and Keno, the odds are always the same. So I say leave if you're not having fun anymore. So for example, if you're losing so much money that you're getting angry, that's a good time to quit. And likewise, let's say that you've done really well. That might be a good time to quit because you're already feeling good because you won so much, and winning more, I'm sure, would keep you feeling good. But if you started losing, you would lose that good feeling. So psychologically, I think leaving when you're up is a good idea. But it all depends on why you're playing in the first place. And by the way, to make a little announcement about my book, Gambling 102, I turned that into the publisher back in December, and it's now late April, and I was getting kind of a little impatient about it taking so long to get published. And so now Huntington Press, my publisher, wants to take a whole fresh new look at my chapter on slot machines and games that can be vultured. And they had somebody provide some feedback to it, and they feel it could be a little bit better. And so that ball has been hit back to me. So I'm going to make some minor changes to that chapter, and I might add material about vulturing Ultimate X. So I'm afraid that we're going to have to wait even longer for that to come out. I'm not angry about this. I was given some good suggestions on ways it can be improved, and I think I welcome adding material on Ultimate X. So for anyone who's been really impatient for that to come out, I'm sorry for the bad news, but it is what it is.
Well, all good things come to those who wait, right?
That's what they say.
So the answer to the trivia question, Dalbrixen says 44. Was it 44?
No.
Oh, okay. And that is the only guess that we got for the trivia. So what was the answer to that?
The answer is 95.
Oh, okay.
Okay, let's go on to another question. What is the longest word that can be that uses only the letters on the top row of a typewriter?
Okay. So if you guys know, put the answer to that in the chat. And then our next gambling question comes from Source Keen, who says, do you know any online casinos that use urgent software? The frequency of 11 sounds like a gold mine.
That's a good question. So there is, as far as I know, just one, and I think it's called betongol.com. It might be bet2goal.com. And it's listed in my directory that they use this software. However, I would find it highly unlikely that they've released this craps game. I played it on the Urgent Games website, and lots of times these software companies will put out games on their website that they haven't released to the casinos yet because they haven't been properly vetted yet. Nevertheless, these games by Urgent Software were frankly awful, and it wouldn't surprise me if an astute player found a bug in any of their games. So I would, I would and also with the 11 bet, it just stayed on the table. It just never won or lost. So that's, and I say this in the second video, is I suspect, and this is not a formal accusation, this is just a theory, that the dice are gaffed to let the player win in fun mode, and maybe the way it's programmed is they say, oh, this player bet on the 11, let's let him win, like 1/3 of the time. So that's just a theory. I'm not making a formal accusation there. But it wouldn't surprise me that if they had a working version of this game at a casino that took real money bets, you would not see this happen. And in fact, you might see the opposite happen, where you have fewer than expected 11s. But again, no formal accusation there.
How many companies do that where they make the fun, free to play games more winnable just to draw people into the
Not
gambling?
very many. I've only caught one company doing this, and I put them on my blacklist for it.
Okay.
But nobody needs to do this that's offering a clean game. Casinos make a lot of money through gambling, and especially an internet casino where there's so little overhead that you don't need to cheat. You can just put out a plain game and just let players have at it, and in the long run, and it won't take that long, you'll be making good money.
Okay. And how many? I was going to ask you a question, but now I forgot, so I guess I don't have to worry about that.
Maybe it'll come to you later.
Yeah, right. Okay, so our next question comes from Tom. Hope everyone is well. Mike, what was your latest published book, and where can we obtain it? Where can we buy it?
Oh, well, I happen to have it right here.
Ooh.
This is it, Gambling 102. This was published back in This is the 2019 edition. This is the second edition. And you can get this on Amazon, I think. I know the publisher is really low on them, which is why we're doing a third printing. In fact, I'm going to check right now. Gambling 102. And yep. Okay, I didn't know this. You can buy the first edition. Oh, wow. This is interesting. The first edition costs $32.50, and the second edition is $16.95. And the first and second editions are different. I removed some material in the second edition and added some new material. So the way we kind of want to do this is to try to incentivize people to buy every single version.
That's awesome.
So there you go. You can get it on Amazon. But I just met with Anthony Curtis yesterday, the owner of Huntington Press, and he said they are really low on it.
Okay. So you got to buy now.
Yep.
Cool. I remember the question I was going to ask you. If people wanted to see this blacklist on your website, how can they find it?
Okay. Well, I'll go there right now. I know you can't see this, but you go to Wizard of Odds and then click at the top, Gambling Online. And then under, where do we put it? I'm going to click Gambling Guide. No, I'm going to click General Information. Okay, nothing happens when I do that. Oh, here we go. So you just click Gambling Online. And then under online casino reviews at the very bottom of that list, it says Blacklist. And that will take you right there. So once you're at wizardofodds.com main page, you can get there in one click.
Awesome. Okay, so we have answers to the trivia question. Was the answer a typewriter?
Yay! So do you get it? The longest word you can make with the top row of a typewriter is typewriter.
That's so neat. Love that.
Okay, good job there. Okay. Okay. In The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody, which was a popular TV show at the time, 2015, what was the name of the hotel?
Okay, so that's a difficult one. If you guys know the answer to that, put that in the chat. Is it a Las Vegas hotel?
No, this is a fictional hotel. So after that question on Lamb Chop's Playhouse, I thought I would have a question for the younger people in the audience. So this show was on either Disney or Nickelodeon, and it was about two, young teenage boys that lived in a hotel because their parents managed it. And it was a really fancy schmancy hotel. And so it just followed their adventures.
I love it. Okay, so our next gambling question comes from Jack. Do you have any thoughts on people having an edge on day trading with stocks or futures, the future markets? Or could this be survivorship bias?
Yeah, no real opinion there. Don't know much about it.
That makes it easy. Love those easy questions. Okay, so our next question comes from, oh, I like this one. This one's from Northern Jim. Do you have an Amazon wish list for your birthday? Some of the lists that you do, it won't show your address to people, so they could still buy you stuff for your birthday with no privacy issues.
Well, thanks for asking. The short answer is no. But thankfully I'm doing well for myself. So, I don't like asking for things. So, yeah. So, thanks for asking, but the answer is no.
Okay. And our next question comes from The NSA is Watching. I like to play craps, but I feel like I don't have the big enough budget to afford a 10-minute table. Any tips for playing on a $10 table with only a few $100s? And are there any lower minimum tables available in Vegas?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't keep on top of minimums in craps very often. I could see the El Cortez having a $5 minimum, as well as the what's that casino called? Jerry's Nugget. Uh, yeah, so they might have $5 tables, but I'm just guessing there. But if you were on a budget, like a 10 unit budget in craps, I would just make a pass or don't pass bet and just stick with that. No supplemental bets.
Yeah.
Or you could go
Um,
to the craps machines, but in my opinion, those are not as much fun.
yeah. There are a couple ways to find a lower minimum craps table. Downtown casinos are a great way, but also something that most people don't think about is the time of day you go. If you're going at night, they're always going to be more expensive. If you're going during the day or graveyard, you're going to have the cheaper minimums. Also, are you going on the weekend or the weekday? Weekdays will typically have a lower minimum and weekends will have a higher minimum.
Yep, and that goes for any table game, by the way.
Yeah. Okay. So I don't see any. Oh, no, here we go. If the fancy hotel, if this is a fancy hotel, was it named the Majestic or the Grand?
No.
Hmm.
No, the answer was the Tipton.
Oh, oh, okay.
Okay.
That's kind of a weird name.
Yep. So the next question is, which European country has two capitals?
So if you know, put the answer in the chat. And our next question comes from Dodgers fan. Michael, are pseudo RNGs used by casinos for video versions of table games such as craps? And is it exploited by a PC level computing?
Okay, first of
Exploited.
all, I'm not sure what you mean by a pseudo RNG as opposed to a regular RNG, but no, they use very good random number generators, and the player would never know what the root random number was. But I really don't think that even the best of computer programmers would be able to detect any kind of bias. And I can't speak to slot machines and video poker in which they are always drawing random numbers, thousands of them every single second. And when you confirm your bet, the last number drawn is what determines what happens. So it's not like there was an outcome sitting there waiting for the next person, but it depends on exactly that microsecond that you confirm your bet.
Okay. And then we had a couple comments on the minimum. So Jay says that off-strip reliable $5 tables can be found at Ellis Island and Jerry's Nugget. And Rob says that Main Street Station has $5 minimum tables with 20 times max odds.
Good information. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Our next question comes from Northern Jim. And he says, if you count cards and the number is positive, is it better to switch to two hands or just bet more on one hand?
Okay, that's a good question. And there's no right or wrong answer to that. Some players do like to split to two hands because it doesn't look so much like you're increasing your bet. But the downside to that is that you're eating up more of those good cards. So a lot of players would say, no, I want to milk a positive deck with bigger bets. So I would say it depends on how aggressive you are. If you're aggressive, I would just stick to one hand and increase your bet. But if you care more about longevity at the table, then I would split to two hands, as long as that doesn't bother the casino. Sometimes they don't like it when sometimes you play one and sometimes you play two.
Yeah. Okay. So Chuck says that I love the Walking Man logo on your shirt. It brings back old memories of my time walking around, crossing the streets in Berlin.
Yes, I'm glad somebody made such an observation. So this is the Ampelmann. Ampel means traffic light in German, and back in East Germany, um, in particular in East Berlin, the pedestrian crossing lights didn't say walk or don't walk like they do here. They had a picture of the Ampelmann for walk, and let me show you. I'll have to turn around here. Can you see this?
Yeah.
That's what it looked like for Don't Walk. And I thought it was so cute. And then after the Berlin Wall came down, suddenly there's just one Berlin. And I think the West Berliners probably found the East German Ampelmann cute. So they started adopting it there. So now you see the Ampelmann all over Berlin, not just on the east side.
It became a beloved icon.
Yes, absolutely. It is a beloved icon of Berlin. And I've never seen
really
him
cool.
outside of Berlin.
Yeah, not a familiar.
Yeah, no, I was just in Munich last year and never did I see the Ampelmann. And frankly, they probably would say, that's a Berlin thing. We want nothing to do with that.
Okay, so the answer to the trivia question. Was it the Netherlands?
Yes, very good. Yes, so the Netherlands, I'm not sure exactly how to explain this, but their center of government is The Hague, but what they call their capital is Amsterdam. So that's about as good as I can explain it. And one time I got into a huge heated argument because there was a bet over this, and it was just a small bet. But at that time, I was on The Hague because that, like I said, is the center of government. But if you look at whatever source you look at for the capital of the Netherlands, it will say Amsterdam. So maybe I was wrong there, but yeah. So that's about as far as I can take that one. And
nice.
That is about all the trivia I have got today.
Well, it looks like we have one. Nope, that's it. That's all of the questions we have.
Okay. Well, I did want to.
Questions.
There was a comment on Wizard of Vegas. So there is always a forum thread on my live streams, and if you ask a question there, I will. I give those priority. However, sometimes I forget to look at them, but I always go back. So Smoothgraph asks, do you think casino table minimums have far outpaced inflation of the US dollar?
Ooh.
And yeah, absolutely. I think that the minimums go up higher than inflation. And we can only look at before and after COVID. After COVID, suddenly minimums went way up. Like it is tough to find any table game for less than a $25 minimum. And the casinos really got rid of a lot of table games during COVID and replaced them. They either went slots only or put in a lot of electronic table games. So yeah, the days of cheap table games are sadly over. And the type of places just mentioned about craps are a welcome exception. But yeah, I can remember when I turned 21 in 1986. And back then they still had $1 blackjack. I'm not saying everybody did, but certainly everybody would have had $5 blackjack. But the Silver City had $1 blackjack, and I'm pretty sure the Circus was at a $2 minimum, and so yeah. But maybe I'll make Ask the Wizard question out of that just to give it more of a scientific look.
Okay. And are those casinos with the higher minimums, are they only on the Las Vegas Strip? Or if you go to one of the, outskirts like Pahrump or Blue Diamond or something, maybe not even in Nevada. Do you know if those minimums changed at all?
It's pretty much everywhere.
Hmm.
And yeah, so if you went to someplace like Pahrump, I'm sure that you would find lower minimums, but basically you could have found them lower at any time in history. But basically everybody's minimums went up, but they didn't go up equally.
Okay.
And
So
by the
when
way,
is
Diamond has no casinos. That's just a small little town with a population of about 100.
Oh, I thought there was two casinos there because there was the
I
one
think
next
you're thinking of
to.
Searchlight.
That's what I'm thinking of. Yep, you're right. Okay, so when is the next time we're going to do a live stream?
Let's see. So next week there's a table game show in town, so I'll be busy with that. How about May 11th?
Awesome. So if you guys have a question, our next AMA live stream will be on May 11th. And remember, if you ask your question earlier, the earlier you ask your question, the more likely it is we'll be able to answer it. So asking like an hour or something before the live stream is definitely a good idea.
Yep.
Cool.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for your
Yes.
participation and your questions. And
Yep.
Heather, thanks for producing the show. And I'll see you on May 11th.
Sounds good. Always my pleasure. Have a good one.
Okay, bye.
Bye.